In this video, I'm going to spin up a virtual server using DigitalOcean. So if you want to follow along with me, you can go to digitalocean.com. Now what DigitalOcean is DigitalOcean is an infrastructure as a service provider. It allows us to spin up virtual servers, mostly of Linux boxes, of all different sorts of capabilities. It's very similar to like Amazon Web Services EC2, but it's not as full-featured as AWS, as Amazon Web Services is more of a platform as a service, where DigitalOcean is infrastructure as a service. So I'm logged on to my user ID, which is Bob Hendry. So I'm not going to show you the actual login, but I've logged into my account. Let me show you the things that you can do in DigitalOcean. First of all, most things that you do within DigitalOcean, you're going to do within a project. So I'm just going to create a project here called My New Scripting Project. You can call it anything that you want. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just spin up a simple CentOS Linux box. And you're going to see the steps in doing so. It really only takes a few minutes. If I didn't have to do it so slowly and deliberately, I probably can get it up and going really just in a couple minutes or so. But I'm just going to go through the verbose steps and actually doing it. And while I'm doing so, I'm going to give you a short guided tour of DigitalOcean. Now, I like DigitalOcean because it's very simple, it's easy to use, and you can spin up virtual servers quickly and easily and cheaply. You have all sorts of different price points that you can spin up servers. You can start with small price points of like as little as $5 a month. And of course, you can go up from there. So now when you spin up a virtual server, they're called droplets. So a droplet is basically a DigitalOcean virtual server, but there's other things that you can do in DigitalOcean as well. So if you want to, you can go on your left-hand side and you could look at all sorts of things that you can manage in DigitalOcean, such as databases, spaces, volumes, networking, and images. Databases are also a really good buy on DigitalOcean, where you can spin up services or databases such as MySQL fairly inexpensively. So to create that, you could create a droplet, which we're going to do. Droplet is a virtual server. Databases, volumes, clusters, domains. You could do things such as firewalls, floating IPs, load balancers, all that other good stuff. So as you can see, it's really not a platform as a service such as Amazon Web Services, but it's a really decent, better than average infrastructure as a service. So let me create a droplet, which is a virtual server. Now here are the different options that we have. We can do the distribution. For example, Ubuntu. We can do FreeBSD, Fedora, Debian, or CentOS. I use CentOS or CentOS, depending on your accent. And also you could look at things that you could buy, such as the marketplace, where you could buy different images and different products that you can put on or you can install on your virtual server. We're not going to do that here. We're just going to go over the steps in spinning up a virtual server. So I'm going to go back to distributions, and I'm going to pick CentOS or CentOS. So I'm going to choose a plan. Now, to do that, it just shows you, DigitalOcean shows you kind of the commercial plans starting at $40 a month. But we're going to click on Starter after we click our operating system, which is going to be CentOS, and we're going to be doing 6.9, 64-bit. You can choose other versions as well. And for the plan, I'm going to choose Standard. And if you look at some of the commercial plans here, we're not going to choose those, right? We can, but we're going to choose a more academic sort of a plan. But if you want, you could click on General Service, Standard. You could click on CPU Optimize and Memory Optimize. But the small print here, you're going to see a link that shows or says Show All Plans. Now that's for us. So we're going to choose a really inexpensive server to spin up. We got a 1 gig of CPU, we got 25 gigs of disk, and we got a fairly slow transfer speed here. Now this isn't going to be good for really large loads, so we're not going to be able to install a lot on here. But if you're just checking this out, this is a good place to start. Also, you get to choose your data center region. So if you're choosing like an edge server, you want to choose one close to you. So we're going to choose New York, United States, and you can, like I mentioned, choose when it's closer to you. Now for authentication, we can do SSH keys, which is probably what you may want to do for production servers. But for our case, we're just going to say a one-time password. We're going to keep it easy peasy, nice and easy here. So we're not going to do more secure authentication. You can play with that a little bit later. Let's just get it up and going for now. And again, a lot of you are rolling your eyes because you probably want to use SSH. But just to get things going, I'm assuming you've never done this before. You can always do that later. Now for a host name, I'm just going to put in Hendry, and I'll put in my test server. And I can't use underscores there. So let me go back and put a hyphen and put in Hendry test server. And then you could do things such as add tags for searching. We're going to skip that for now. And let me change my host name to Hendry test server development. So save this, so you're going to need to know it later. At that point, we're almost ready. So we can click on Create Droplet. At this point, what's going to happen is DigitalOcean is going to provision our server, and is going to send us an email that's going to be, act as a confirmation that the server's been created, and it's going to give us the admin password so we could log in as the root user, the root admin user. And you might want to write down your droplet name here. At this point, what we can do is we can wait for DigitalOcean to provision our server, and after our server's provision, we can log into it. And you also want to take this IP address and you want to write this down as well. So in this case, we got 142.93.3.17. So now what we're ready to do is we can log into our root user, we can log into our droplet, and we can log in as the root user. Now at this point, like I said, after you create your droplet, you're going to get an email that's going to tell you what your admin user is going to be. So at that point, what you would do is you would log on as your root user, make sure that your server's provisioned, and at that point, what you would do is most likely create additional users, like a regular user you would log on as. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to click on my droplet. But before I do that, if you click on the ellipsis here, you get to see all the things that you get to do on that droplet. Now, what we're going to do here is we're not going to destroy. Destroy would actually get rid of our instance. Is we can do the access console will allow us to log in via a website or via a web page. Now, in reality, you may want to download Putty, P-U-T-T-Y, to use to log into your virtual server, but you can do so here as well. So at this point, I'm going to log on as my root user. It's going to ask me what my login is going to be. I'm going to maximize this. I know it's a little bit small. What you can do is you can make your font a little bit larger if you want. Now, we're not going to be doing a whole bunch of stuff here, so we'll just use the small font for now. So the first time that you log in, you're going to log in as root, R-O-O-T. And that root user is going to be, your admin user. It's going to give you command line access to actually, do all of your admin stuff. Now, you don't want to log on to your root user every time you log into your server. You're going to want to log on as other users that have different, privileges to create files and to do administrative tasks or do or not do administrative tasks on your server. That's really going to be up to you. So we're not going to go over any sort of security here or any sort of user management, what different users should be allowed to do or not to do. We're just going to go into just some quick, create a user and, and put in a password for the user, etc. Now we're going to log on as root. And like I said, you're going to check your email and DigitalOcean is going to give you your password. So once you do that, you're going to get like a real weird sort of, one-time only use password. So you're going to supply that in DigitalOcean. Then it's going to prompt you to change your root level password. Now, again, we're not using SSH here. We're just using the one-time password thing. So in reality, you probably would be using SSH to do that. But here we're just using the one-time password thing. And it looks like I got it screwed up here for my my password. So let me go grab it again. What I'm doing is I'm grabbing it off camera here, so you don't really get to see it. So let me log in again, and it's clicked in exit, went back in. So I put in my password, or pardon me, let me log in as root. Let me paste in my password, and we should get, looks like I got it incorrect again. So again, what I did is I got it's one of those really weird, like one time only one here. And it said you requested, there we go. So I pasted in my password, and it's going to ask me for my new password. So I'm going to paste in my new password, and it's going to type it in there. So there we go. So what I did there is I logged on as root. I used the password when you weren't looking. I got it from my email, and I pasted it in, and then I changed it. So I'm logged on as my root user here. So now what I want to do is let me log in again, and just to kind of go through the exercise, and let me create an additional user here, just like a regular user like me, like B. Hendry, that I could log in and do anything. Now remember, you only really want to log in as root. Even though you know your root password, that's the highest elevation you could get as far as administrative privileges go. So you only want to log in as root if you're doing admin stuff. Otherwise, you want to log in even yourself as a regular user. So let me go back and go into DigitalOcean again and go into my droplet and do that change. So again, I'm kind of playing around here, kind of getting in and out. So I don't want to add a domain. I want to access the console again. There we go. So let's pretend like we're just logging in for the second time. I mean, we logged in as root, we changed our password. So tomorrow we log in as root, we put in the password that we changed to 2, and then now we're logged in as our root user. So our first thing that we want to do is create a mortal user. Now, if you know Linux, you know the script and to do that. So we're going to go through the steps in creating a user and then creating a password for the user. Now, different users are going to have different capabilities. So if you don't know Linux and you don't know how to give user security different capabilities, I encourage you to learn how to do that. Again, this is kind of a beginner's video. The purpose of the video here is really just to spin up a virtual server in DigitalOcean, log into the virtual server as the root user, change the root password, and then create a user. That's really all that we're doing here. So let me create a user by choosing the user add method or the user add command. So right now what I did is I added a user called B. Hendry. Remember, I'm logged in as root. So at this point now, I need to change or need to select a password for B. Hendry. Now again, if you want to know more about adding users and password management on Linux systems, I encourage you to look that up. Here, we're just doing the happy path. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to change or actually specify the password for B. Hendry, and I'm going to put in my new password. You can choose any one that you want. Then it's going to ask me to retype it. Remember, I'm logged in as root. I'm the admin user here. Not everyone can do this. So now I create B. Hendry. So now what you should do is you should, in addition to you have written down your root user name, which is root, and your password. Again, you should have that written down somewhere. Don't forget that. You're going to need that. You should write down, again, in a secure text file, your user ID, your mere mortal user ID, and your password. So now at this point, you have two users. You have your root user that would allow you to do all elevated tasks, such as install things, create users, anything that you would want an administrator to do. And then you have your regular user for B. Hendry. So at this point now, you could log on as either or. And obviously, as you go, you're going to be creating more users. And as you know more about user management, password management, SSH, you can expand your knowledge. Again, this is just happy path just to get you up and going. So let me log on, make sure this works as B. Hendry, and let me log on with my password, and I'm logged in. There you go. So now I have my virtual server up and running. My virtual server is working. I could log into it now, going to DigitalOcean and I could use the console to log into my virtual server, or more realistically, at this point, you could download PuTTY or any other any other program that you could use to telnet into your server. Then you could log in via your machine name or your IP address. So there you have it. In this video, we learned how to use DigitalOcean to create a virtual server and to log into our virtual server with the root user ID, and then under the root user ID, we created another user. So thank you for watching, and I bid you all a very well rest of the day.